Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
This is my boomstick.
Here's Johnny.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Righteous! Righteous! Yeah!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Houston, we have a problem.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Those Film Nerds. My name is Will Spalding, and as always, joined with me at TFN headquarters is a knight to my horse, to my shining armor. It's sjdierberger. Sam, what's going on? What's happening? How are you doing?
You know, that intro didn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, it really didn't. I was going off the cusp. The writers didn't show up this week. Let's just say that.
They're on strike.
Yeah, it's like 2007 all over again.
We don't offer health care benefits to our writers.
Oh.
But we pay them, which is more than what we can say about the interns.
Right.
Which is exactly what we say to the writers. We're like, you do less work than the interns, and we pay you. So what are you complaining about?
Yeah. Yeah, the interns really get the shaft, though. We've said that over and over, but yeah, they live a tough life. Let's just say that.
Someday we will elevate them to the level of host, but not anytime soon.
No. They have to earn that.
That's the carrot that keeps them going, you know?
Right. Otherwise, they just leave. As we're already completely wheels off, Sam, what are we talking about on this fine afternoon?
This fine afternoon, we're talking about The Green Knight.
Let one of your knights try to land a blow against me. Indulge me in this game. I will be deep.
The Green Knight. Sam, I say afternoon because this is the first time we've recorded on an afternoon in quite a while. We're used to night, so I feel like there's going to be a certain level of energy, to this podcast. Or on the other hand, this movie might be a massive power down. We'll,
that's completely possible.
We'll talk about it all. But for now, before we get into The Green Knight, David Lowery's A24's The Green Knight. I have one bit of interesting news for you, Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything, but this is something that came across the ticker not too maybe only a couple hours after we were finished recording last week's episode, Old. I've been aware for a little bit that Wes Anderson is kind of in development of a new film, untitled, but we have a little casting news of it, Sam.
Oh yeah.
I think this is interesting. There's 4 cast members announced. We have some of the regs. We have Tilda Swinton, Bill Murray, Adrian Brody. Just some of the casuals. We're used to seeing these 3 in Wes Anderson movies, but
right.
A man making his first Wes Anderson appearance, and I want to get your opinion on it, how he fits in this quirky universe. One Tom Hanks.
Yes. He's at what is he like after 35 years in the industry, Tom Hanks is losing his Wes Anderson virginity.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the official term. Yeah.
That is the official term.
Yeah.
You've been Anderson.
Right.
Yeah, Tom will fit right in, probably. But the interesting thing about a Wes Anderson movie is you often have a very ensemble cast, and Tom Hanks is not much of a supporting player, shall we say.
No, you're right. You're right.
So it will be interesting how he's utilized in this film. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it'd be weird to see him in a supporting role, but it would also be very strange to see a Wes Anderson movie
Being led by someone?
being led by one person. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And it's funny you mentioned that. I'm looking at Tom Hanks movies, and I can find 2 movies that are not cameos.
Mm.
You know, like Polar Express is nearly a cameo, and things like that. I can find two singular movies where, two. I'm gonna say two movies where he is not the lead. Catch Me If You Can, but he is a very close second lead.
Right.
And The Post, in which Meryl Streep might be the lead, but I think you could argue that Tom Hanks is also. They're dual leads. That's it. Like he's the lead in almost every other movie he's in.
Yeah, you look at the movie posters, and it's just
his face.
Tom Hanks's face. Like,
oh, I forgot about The Circle. Oh boy,
40 times over. Yeah.
Forgot about that one. That one's real rough.
But I kind of see him in a you could almost, in the same way he is in The Circle, you can almost see him as an antagonist. A sort of, maybe a Willem Dafoe type. If you compare that to like the Grand Budapest Hotel or something like that,
Sure. I had to scroll down further. I forgot one more. One of your favorite movies, The Lady Killers. We could see.
Oh, yes, The Lady Killers.
But in all seriousness, I guess that'd be the closest comparison, maybe.
Yeah. No, in The Lady Killers, he is antagonistic, but he's also the main character. There's no question about that.
You're right.
The Lady Killers is not necessarily a bad movie. It's just a bad Coen Brothers movie.
All right, I'll get you down. Not a bad movie. Sam Dierberger.
Not a bad movie. Not a good one either.
No, we'll just go with the first part.
Yeah, that's fine. Honestly, I'm fine with that. Anything the Coens make.
Right.
I was gonna mention too, with other pieces of news. Have you seen the new trailers for Dune? Do you care? I don't care, but do you?
I saw they came out, or I saw it came out, and I said, "Oh, I should watch that," and then never did.
Fair enough. It's
funny you say. I'm already kind of done with Dune. Like it hasn't come out, and I'm kind of done with it. Is that bad?
Yeah. No.
We've been seeing things for just years, and I'm just tired. I'm tired of hearing about it. Just come out already, and we'll talk about it, and then I'll give it a 2.5, and then we'll be done. It'll be great.
It's just it just seems like Dune has a lot of world building to do in one movie, and it just seems like it doesn't even seem like a real movie. Like I think it's a joke. I think I've said this before, but I really think that they just filmed enough for the
trailers, yeah,
and then they just kept pushing it out for like a new recut of the trailer every couple months just to keep people excited, you know?
Pull the rope along, pull the string along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
That'd be a heck of a practical joke. Yeah, I won't be the first to say this, but I've heard that Dune is unfilmable, just because of how dense it is. I refuse to read the book. I've gotten it recommended so many times, and I won't do it.
Yeah.
I might give David Lynch's version a shot, just so if I kind of have a broad baseline understanding of what's going on, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't. I have no interest, really.
No interest.
I'll see it probably.
Yeah.
But it's such a niche thing. Like all these Dune fans came out of the woodwork after this movie was announced. I'm like, You
Denny,
people,
it's Denny.
yeah. Maybe it's just love for Denny, but it's all these people are like, oh, I read the book, it's incredible, it's my favorite fantasy world or whatever. It's like no one had heard of this book.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't know. I'm tired of hearing about it, honestly. The other trailer that dropped, and I don't know, I think this was early last week, so we probably could have covered it last week, but did you see the trailer for House of Gucci?
Yes.
How are we feeling about that?
Man, I am so freaking excited for this movie that trailer, I thought that was a good trailer. That trailer could have been garbage, and I still would have been excited. It's easily my most anticipated. And I'm building it up so highly in my mind that I feel like even if it's like a 4 stars, I'm going to be disappointed,
Right.
which is not good for me. But
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be incredible. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the trailer is kind of what I expected it to look like. I didn't think Jared Leto would be so unrecognizable, but
He's all makeup up.
You couldn't just, you couldn't just cast an old man. You had to get Jared Leto and give him prosthetics and everything.
Leto gonna Leto, okay?
He's gonna Leto. Yeah.
He's pretty much insufferable as just kind of a personality.
Yeah.
We mentioned a power down earlier. He's a power down. He's definitely the most like I'm the best mentality ever, which is super annoying. But he's a good actor. So hopefully,
he's hard to work with too. He's a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
He terrorizes his castmates. He's.
It's well documented that on the Suicide Squad set, which that movie's really bad. I understand that, but cast members and people on the set have said like, I don't think I ever really met Jared Leto. Like he was always just doing his Joker bit. Like they had never met him, which is funny. And oh gosh, but you're right. He looks really, really interesting, and I'm sure he'll be good.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. So yeah, I think those are the only 2 trailers that really dropped this week that are worth talking about.
It's like November 24th. I gotta find.
We said October. I don't know.
October? Oh,
I thought we did.
Yeah, November.
No, November 24th. You're right. My bad.
And I guess we talked about Dune, so I should mention that one. Dune is October 22nd. Interesting. Okay, same week as the French Dispatch. Oh, Sam, we're gonna have to choose one.
Oh.
Or I guess we just push the other one to the next week, I suppose. But
yeah, that would.
Or we just choose one.
Dude, imagine being Ridley Scott and having 2 movies come out within 5 weeks of each other.
Yeah,
like seriously.
That guy's old too, man. I'm surprised he's still making them, much less 2 a year.
What keeps these guys going? It's incredible to me.
Storytellers, man. They just got to keep telling stories.
They don't know what else to do with themselves.
True.
But with that in mind, we should probably move on to another medieval tale.
Good transition.
Yes.
The Green Knight.
Green Knight.
Yeah. Hence. Another year nearly gone already. You must seek him out. Was it not just again? Perhaps. But it is not complete.
Okay, Sam. The Green Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Before we even get into any thoughts on the movie, tell me your background with this movie. Were you excited or not excited at all, or kind of sprung up on you? What are your thoughts?
You know, what's interesting to me is that medieval movies have never really fascinated me as much as they should.
Sure.
You know, I like Shakespeare. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. I'm not necessarily entranced by movies set in the Middle Ages, you know, as much as I am, as opposed to like perhaps, you know, the 50s and noir, you know, in terms of a setting genre, right? This, you know, movies fall into a setting genre, you know, I'm making a what's the term, like a Sandal and Shields picture, which is, you know, takes place in ancient Rome or ancient Greece.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm making a, you know, a space picture, you know, same thing. So a medieval, that genre has never really fascinated me, and for that reason, I was not particularly excited for The Green Knight. I had no, you know, particular excitement towards it, but I went and saw it, expecting good things. Friend of the show, Jude, was blown away by it.
Yeah.
And I should have been a little more wary of Jude liking it. I should have taken that as a
underrated joke right there. Underrated joke that no one will get.
And also I had kind of forgotten that it was a A24 joint, which mistake on my part. So but yeah, what were your expectations for The Green Knight? You were a lot more excited about it than I was.
I was, and actually most of that is because of the director, David Lowery. I've really enjoyed a couple of his films. A Ghost Story being my favorite of his. I think that movie is really creative and pretty ingenious. And The Old Man and the Gun and Pete's Dragon are really solid movies as well. So I had a lot of anticipation for The Green Knight. I guess I had never really thought about the medieval genre, but you're totally right. I guess it's something that I'm not super interested in, I suppose. I mean, there's a few that I like, but yeah, I guess I wasn't rushing out to the theaters because of that, I guess. And yeah, this is an interesting story. So that kind of fascinated me that it was Arthurian, Knights of the Round Table-esque, or at least that world. Yeah, so I would say I was interested in what this was going to be. Didn't really know what it was going to be though, because Lowry's tendencies are so interesting and unique. Comparable to some, and we'll mention those later, but yeah, I would say I was excited for this movie, I guess more than you. But yeah, that's kind of my background here. I guess we'll just get into general thoughts then, Sam. What were your general thoughts? The greatest movie of all time, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
It's incredibly well made. But seriously, looking at the Letterboxd on this thing, I mean, there are people who really loved this movie, and I don't know if I can share a universe with them. Like, I'm not sure we're even on the same wavelength. I don't know if I can respect them as human beings, because and people I admire, people I like. I'm being facetious, but you know, people I admire who are, you know, a little more, should we say, inclined to like movies that are a little more art housey, a little more surrealist, something that's a little more style over substance. Those kinds of people tended to really, really like this movie, and it kind of bothers me because I think it's so blaringly obvious that The Green Knight doesn't have a lot of substance to it. And I said this in my review. I think that visually, the movie is quite an achievement. Incredible visuals, incredible visual storytelling, by the way. It's able to tell a story with great images, great imagery, but
without a lot of dialogue.
Without a lot of dialogue. The dialogue here is quite sparse, and the dialogue is actually quite good. You know, it's
when it's there.
It's delivered and written in kind of this medieval speak, and it's, you know, challenging enough to enjoy, but also easy to follow, and good dialogue, but it's incredibly sparse. And I just think that there's not a lot of meat to the story itself. I think the plot points that are enunciated by this visual imagery aren't particularly strong. That was my great annoyance with it. I thought the pacing was awful. There were points where I was checking my watch, sitting in the theater, like, how long is this going to go on? This one sequence, right? Like, this one little point. And every plot point just felt irrelevant to the next. A lot of people said they found this movie to be funny, and I didn't.
I would disagree with that statement.
I didn't find any humor in it at all. Like, some people thought it was emotionally impactful. I didn't really get that either. People said Dev Patel was really, really good in it. I thought his performance was fine. He didn't attach me to his character that much at all. I didn't really have much affection for his character. I didn't dislike his character either. What are some of your general thoughts, Will, then?
Man, you have some good ones there. Okay, interesting. I agree with some of those. You're right. There's a lot of, I would describe it as filler, but there's no need for it to be filler because this is over a 2-hour movie, so there's no need to have filler. So that results in the pacing being poor. I would agree with you there. I will disagree with you in the sense that when things are happening, I think there is some substance. That's where the filler comes in, though, is just get rid of some of the filler and things are happening more often. You know, every time Dev Patel's character, who I cannot remember his name, every time he's is it Garwin or is it Garwin?
It's spelled Gaiwan. So like Gaywin?
I don't know. One of those two.
Scottish.
Yeah. Every time he's interacting with someone, I was really dialed in. Like really, really focused and was enjoying it. And every time he was off on his own, just walking, I was like, okay, this needs to end. This really needs to stop.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that's a lot of what A Ghost Story is. Lowry's, a previous Lowry movie, is just kind of people just hanging out, just walking or just watching and walking. And so it's interesting that I feel so strongly about that movie and so anti about parts of this movie. You know, I wrote in my Letterboxd review and said, I can't tell if this is the greatest movie of the year or the worst movie of the year. And I still don't know that, actually. I'm really not sure where I'm going to put this.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of redeemable qualities, though, so I'm edging towards higher than lower. But there's a lot. There's a lot that could have been improved upon. Yeah, those are kind of my general thoughts, I guess. I thought Dev Patel was good. I wasn't like enthralled by his performance. I found no humor in this. I didn't even know people thought this was funny. I don't think I even knew I was supposed to be laughing. Like, not even that. They told a joke and I thought, oh, that's not even really that funny. I didn't think there was even any jokes in it. much less funny jokes.
Well, I've just been reading some reviews where they're like, "This is, what did friend of ours, friend of Jude's. I'm not calling him out, but certain person said in a 4-star review, this movie manages to capture perfectly the whimsy and dread present in fairy tales of centuries prior that it takes inspiration from. See, I don't think there was anything whimsical about it.
Yeah.
Someone else was comparing it to like The Princess Bride, and I'm like, no. The Princess Bride is witty. Like, this is not witty. This is just strange, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sam, let's just kind of break it down. What did you think about the introduction of Garwin, or Gawain, or however you pronounce it? You know, we kind of realize he's this kind of low life character who doesn't have much going for his life, but has a lot of potential. It's made out to seem. How did that work for you?
I mean, it's fine. It's not immediately revealed that, you know, he's King Arthur's nephew. First of all, we're introduced to him first in that kind of, I would call it kind of like a forward scene.
Yeah, that was really odd. I had already forgotten about that until you just mentioned it.
And it's narrated by this creepy voice who we're still not sure. Right? Like,
was it supposed to be the Green Knight?
Was it?
I don't know. I have no idea.
That's one of my primary questions that never really got answered.
Gosh, I had already forgotten about that. My goodness.
So, yeah, that's like a little 2-minute thing. And I'm like, oh, I was entranced by that. I thought that was quite a bold way to start the movie. It's like, wow,
yeah, sure.
This is kind of haunting right away. But then Gawain.
We'll say
Gawain. I think that's a better word.
All right, we'll say Gawain. That's what we're going.
I think they say Gawain. So Gawain, Dev Patel, wakes up on Christmas morning, with, I guess he's in a brothel of some sort.
Yeah.
On Christmas,
just having a good time, man.
Having a good time, which, you know, it could be an interesting way to develop a character, but they don't really do anything with that.
No, he leaves right away.
Because you think like, he's in a brothel, you know, he's a womanizer, he's a pleasure seeker. He doesn't really care about duty or responsibility. And that's just not true at all. Like, he has like a girlfriend. Like, he's pretty committed to her, you know, he's committed to duty. He wants to prove himself to his uncle, the king, you know. He
very much wants to be something. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm not faulting him for being in a brothel. I'm just saying, like, if that's how you want to introduce a character, which could be a good way to introduce a character, don't put this character in a brothel. That should not be our first introduction to him. If he is indeed this noble person, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. It was never explained. What did you make of that opening sequence? It was very unfocused, I would say. We get a lot of cutting back and forth, a lot of stuff going on. Right?
Yeah, I couldn't tell who was who. You know, even when he left the brothel, I didn't know where he was going, who he met with. Apparently, it was his mother. Then it felt very quickly like we were at this dinner, which it was the round table. I didn't know who was who here. Eventually, we found the king, but I didn't know it was like I was just confused at who everyone was. I did not know who a single person was.
Yeah.
Which turns out to not really matter because most of those characters we don't really see again, at least not for any significant purpose. But I was just like, who is everyone right now? I don't even know what's going on.
Right.
Until, so I would say I was just confused. I think it could have been a little bit more concise. Until we get to the Green Knight scene, man, when we first meet the Green Knight, and that scene was excellent. Oh my gosh, I was on the edge of my seat. I thought this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the Green Knight, and we meet him right away. I love that we met him right away. I thought this was going to be an end of movie thing.
Right.
It didn't feel like they pulled that punch though. It felt like it was purposeful, and I thought that was really clever that we meet him right away and we get this out of the way. And I know this is a poem, and it's probably how it happens in the poem, but good for Lowry for sticking with that, because you could easily save that for the end to make it some big suspense of what this guy is, what he looks like, that type of thing.
Right.
So great that we saw him right away. Super menacing, loved the voice. And we get this game. This game is proposed to us, Sam. We any one of the knights gets to strike this Green Knight, and that knight will get his axe. But in a year, the knight gets to strike the same to whatever knight chooses to accept his game. And Dev Patel, he accepts because he wants to prove everyone. And the knight clearly says, whether it be like a scratch on the cheek or I think it was a blade to the stomach or something like that.
Right.
And he cuts his head off.
First of all, again, I understand this is based on a legend, and from what I understand, Lowry is following, the legend pretty faithfully. But what a stupid game. What a stupid plot device. I thought there was more to it at first when they're reading that off. First of all, I should mention, it's kind of implied. It seems like in this scene's really good. I'll grant you that. It's really well done. But it doesn't make sense in the context of the story because it's kind of implied in the scene that there's some other actor behind the Green Knight. There's some sort of authority behind him who's sending him to do this. Because we have this seance, right? We have the seance going on. And the queen, when she's reading the Green Knight's challenge, she kind of gets possessed for a second.
Yeah.
It's there's some magic going on here. It seems like there's a higher power at play, but it's just the Green Knight who wants to play a game. Now, this is actually a strength of the film, and maybe more of a strength of the subject material, which thematically it takes a while to appreciate this, but I think it works, is that, you're like, it's kind of a stupid game. He could have just scratched him on the cheek and then gotten a scratch on the cheek a year later and say, hey, I went up against the Green Knight. But it's a tale of men's pride, right? He's just too prideful he can't resist but to behead this Green Knight in front of everybody.
Well, he's offering it,
Yeah. He just can't resist. And he naively assumes that the Green Knight will perish from a beheading. And it's like, oh, no.
No, Green Knight gonna be sticking around.
Green Knight is a mysterious figure. I also loved, after I watched the movie, I read up on this legend a little bit. And, the Green Knight is historically just a very mysterious figure. But it's never implied that he's got this kind of earthy design to him. But Lowry went for this earthy looking thing. It looks like he's made of tree bark and vines. And I thought that worked really well. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of representing nature, kind of a monstrous looking design. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and he's large as well, intimidating. Yeah. So essentially, Dev Gawain cuts his head off, gets the axe, and then old Green Knight picks up his head and walks away. uh,
Laughing. He has an
he,
evil laugh
he
too.
was evil laughing. Correct.
Uh,
A year later, Sam, Mr. Gawain, he's up to his old antics. He's just slumming it still.
yeah.
And the king. But what do you think of the king's voice, man? Was there any pro to that? Like, what? Why were we doing that?
Why was the king? He just appeared so feeble.
Is that King Arthur? I didn't know that either. I didn't.
According to the Wikipedia plot summary, that is King Arthur.
Okay.
Can confirm. And I understand the movie is trying to make him, a little more over the hill or whatever. He's a little older. He can't really do combat anymore, but still. Like, he was just.
Well, I was like looking up the cast. It says King. I'm like, okay, great. So I don't know who this guy is either.
He's just a guy. No, I think historically Gawain, well, not historically, but in legend, Gawain is King Arthur's nephew.
Okay.
So there we go. But so we have that. Gawain is kind of gaining a reputation amongst the townsfolk. He's the guy who beheaded the Green Knight. There's this nice little visual piece with the puppets. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Really haunting, really kind of foreboding. Like, I enjoyed that. But other than that, this is another piece of kind of awkwardly timed kind of just, I'd consider it lost time in the movie, kind of filler, not super necessary, but I don't know. What'd you think of that?
Yeah, this is kind of the visual storytelling that you were kind of telling. I mean, there's no dialogue, obviously, and I thought it was fine. It was all right. Did I need it? Probably not. Was I hating it like some of the other parts? No. So it was all right. I want to get into kind of, I guess, the meat or lack of meat of the movie, Sam. He sets out on his journey, Gawain does. And we get kind of 4 mini stories inside of here. And I kind of want to hear your thoughts on them. So first we meet the boy on the bed, and we'll get into spoilers here. So spoilers for the Green Knight. He meets the boy on the battlefield who tricks him and sets a trap on him. He meets this fox. He meets this woman who is seemingly dead and asks him to find her head in the stream. And then he meets this this trio of people in a castle. 2 women and a man. What do you think of these 4 kind of events, Sam? Maybe break each one of them down a little bit on just your thoughts, just basic.
They're just. So I did look into it. All 4 of them are part of the legend. They're part of the narrative poem that the movie's based on, and you can tell that it's faithful to the subject material because it's weird and it really shows no semblance to the storyline. I think all 4 of them are incredibly unnecessary apart from the fox, which we'll see is kind of reoccurring. But each of the 4 incidents, the episodes are kind of just unrelated from the other. So I wasn't a fan of really any of them.
Interesting.
Like a lot of times with movies like this, with adventure movies, something happens and then they encounter something else, but all of it builds to each other. He's kidnapped by these people and he escapes, and he finds the woman in the cabin in the middle of the woods, and then he takes some magic shrooms, and then he like
We've all done
it's
that.
just it's like all unrelated from the last, it seems to me.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, it's lost time up until he arrives at the Lord and the Lady's house. I think that whole sequence within itself, self-contained, is kind of interesting, well done. But it takes a while to get there.
Yeah, this is kind of where we get into what I was saying earlier. So he sets out on this journey, and it's like 6 minutes of just walking, or I guess he's riding his horse at this point. Riding the horse, and we find this kid, and I'm dialed in. We get about 7 minutes of this interaction with these people who then tie him up and steal his stuff. We get about 7 minutes of that, and then we get about 8 more minutes of him walking around and just checking things out. Somehow his axe shows back up, which the kid stole. Did I miss something? I had no idea how that happened.
Yeah.
I don't think I missed anything. I think it just showed back up.
Oh, the axe has a mind of its own. It's a magic axe.
Yeah, it's a magic axe.
Whatever.
So yeah, we get like 8 more minutes of him just walking, then meets the fox, and the fox is kind of recurring, or comes back, and we got 8 more minutes of him walking again, and then we meet this woman in this cabin, and I thought that was awesome. I really liked that scene, or pair of scenes. That was great. And then we get 7 more minutes of him walking and just doing nothing really, and then we get into this house, and I thought, like you said earlier, I thought that sequence was great. Actually, I really loved everything going on there.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, I think a lot of this dialogue is strong, and we get some monologues, which are cool. So I really enjoyed everything there, and we get after he leaves there, we get a couple more minutes of him just walking. So, I mean, I just laid out 20 minutes of him just walking around. And I think that's what you were saying earlier. If we just cut, even half of that out, and it's down to 2 hours, I think this feels a lot. Obviously, it feels quicker, but I think this is a lot better too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and until we get to really the third act, where he gets to the green church. What do they call it? The green
the Green Chapel.
The Green Chapel. Thank you. Or do you have anything else to say before we kind of transition into the third act?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to get into the Lord and the Lady thing, I thought that was really well done. Like,
Yeah,
that was the only
talk about it.
Of the 4 episodes, that was the only one I really cared about.
Okay.
I thought the whole notion of like, anything that you receive in my house, you must give to me, and I'll give you this game. It just kind of has this historical, kind of this mythological ethos to it, and I really enjoyed that. With the whole kind of sort of sexual jealousy that's on display with the lady and Gawain.
Yeah.
And it definitely got A24'd there for a second, but it's well done visually. I wrote in my review that this movie was overdone in the A24 oven, and I think that's a good way to put it. There's just certain elements you're like, this is an A24 movie.
Absolutely.
So I enjoyed that sequence in the house, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. You mentioned their other game, whatever you receive, you give as well. I think a lot of these games, are what they're calling them, and this whole movie in general is, I think, just a vehicle for messages and themes. There's a lot of thematic elements going on, and much of the plot is just to tell these themes, which is interesting to me. So I think in that sense, especially that house scene or sequence, it's multiple scenes, really works well. I think, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's great to see actual characters interact and dialogue being spoken. It's the most interesting part of the movie by far.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. So we have that. But then we move into the Green Chapel.
Yeah.
If you want to get into it. And it's just...
Was it a letdown?
It's a letdown. It's a letdown. And you can say that you can chalk this up to me not really caring about the character of Gawain a whole lot, but man, I was just annoyed when he kept going, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Okay, I'm ready. Don't do it, don't do it. I'm like, just stop it. Stop it. I'm just like, I'm just tired of this movie. It's been going on for far too long.
Yeah.
Already. Just let something happen. Like this happens 4 or 5 times in the same scene.
I think it's 4. Yeah.
It's absolutely frustrating to watch. And it's not frustrating in a good way. Like, it's not like the director wants us to be frustrated. It's just, it's bothersome. It's tedious, and it adds to the runtime.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's interesting too. Gawain gets there and has to wait what seems at least a whole night. The Green Knight wakes up, and
yeah,
the Green Knight seems to not really care, actually. He kind of asks, is it Christmas? And then he's like, all right, let's get this over with. Like,
right.
He seems to not really give a crap, which I think is actually well done.
Yeah.
And I'll push back a little bit. I think that frustrates Gawain because he's thinking, what? Like, this is it, really? Like, we are not going to have some dialogue, or there's nothing else to be done. I can't back out at all, or at least let me back out. So he's frustrated, which I think leads to all these waits. And maybe we could have done 2 less because there are like 4. You're right.
Right.
There actually might be 5. I don't even remember. It's a lot. He's frustrated, which leads to the waits because he wants information, which the Green Knight is clearly not going to give him.
Right.
So I didn't mind that part. I didn't think it was fantastic. I thought it was good until we get to the final wait, Sam, and he runs away. And we should mention all the while having this green belt on that his mother makes him to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
He runs away, and this I love this ending. Actually, I know that for a fact that I like this ending.
Yeah.
We essentially he runs away, and we see him live out his entire life. Through solely visuals. It's just no dialogue. He has a kid and takes the kid away from this woman who we had met earlier. Gets married to someone else and has loses his first child to war. Has another child. Eventually becomes not respected, where his people betray him and storm his castle. What did you think of all of this, Sam?
Yeah, I was on board with it until, he's sitting on his throne and then his head just falls right off. And then I'm like, well, that's quite a way to end. And I was expecting it to cut to credits, but no, we realize this is all a dream sequence. And I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen The Last Temptation of Christ?
I haven't seen Willem Dafoe be Jesus.
Great film, actually. Seriously, great
I
film.
will watch it sometime.
But this is literally, and I'm not the only one pointing this out, this is ripped directly
interesting
from Last Temptation of Christ. There's a scene, this is not too much of a spoiler, but there's
go for it.
Pretty significant, about 20 to 30 minutes long, I would say, where Christ is on the cross and he has a dream sequence about what life would be like if he just
Laid low.
didn't die. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And
Spoiler
then
for a 43-year-old movie.
spoiler for a 43-year-old movie, and then it cuts back to Jesus, just like it cuts back to Gawain, and he realizes, nope, you know what, I have to go through with it. So Lowry, I think it's blatantly obvious that Lowry just ripped that entire device from Scorsese, which is fine. But then it's kind of like you have this moment of like, what is, the movie ends, right? Like he's like, okay, I'm ready, behead me now, and then that's the end of the movie, and you kind of realize what a stupid character. Like he's just it's a fool's errand, right? Like he just it's just a character who is kind of just unbruised by fate. Like it doesn't teach him anything. He's just like, yep, this is the end of my life now. I did what I did, and here we go. Nothing is learned, nothing is gained.
I think he did learn. He learned by seeing his future and knowing that he lived his entire life with guilt of that he didn't fulfill his promise and complete this game. And this game, like I said, this game is really silly. I understand that, but it's a plot device to show this theme. He comes to the end of his life, realizes he's going to die, and removes the belt that protects him, and he is killed.
Mm-hmm.
And realizes like all this pain and suffering because of him in the future of his son dying and his people are at war. So he decides to live up to his promise and be a noble sir, to which he was knighted for. And he tells the Green Knight essentially that, no, I am ready now, and removes the belt. And the knight says he's proud of him. And then, still apparently is going to kill him. Although we're not 100% sure on that. I don't know. Because it does cut, you're right. I really, really enjoyed this ending. And I thought it worked spectacularly for me. Maybe I would have thought differently if I had seen The Last Temptation of Christ prior to this. I wish I would have known that. I would have seen that first. But
yeah. Look, I think it was a bold ending. I think it's very bold just to kill your character so pointlessly. Like it's
sure.
All it is, all the theme is you should keep your word.
Pretty simple. Yeah.
There's no underlying significance to Gawain's death. It's only him and his honor. It's not the kingdoms, it's not the worlds. He's not dying for any greater cause, except he wants to be a noble person who keeps his word.
I think that's the nature of the time that this story was told. They tell these really complex stories that end up having simple themes.
I suppose so.
But then you could make the argument that this complex story with the simple theme shouldn't be put to screen in today's world. So I understand that as well.
Well, there's just more elements you could add to it. You could make it a little higher stakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoyed the ending. I do want to get into director comparison, which I think is interesting. There's a lot of Lowry is very stylistically his own. But did you get Eggers vibes in this, Sam?
I definitely got Eggers vibes from it.
Okay.
And I think that's just a consequence of the studio.
Okay. It's a wonder I didn't hate this movie then.
Yeah. It's very Eggers, although Eggers would care more about the dialogue.
Yeah, and he'd make Willem Dafoe fart in it too.
He would. Yeah, I'm surprised Willem Dafoe doesn't show up. It's kind of disappointing that he doesn't, but it's okay. I think Eggers would have done a better job with this. He would have made it more terrifying.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't think there was enough mystery surrounding the Green Knight. It's just, they call him a tester of men, and he's just a killing machine. That's all he does.
He's just a dude. Yeah.
There's no philosophy to him. He's not just this omnipotent force. He just shows up, asks if you want to play a game, take him up on it. Sure.
Games are fun. Yeah. Why not?
Because what's going to happen now? He kills Gawain. Maybe next Christmas he goes to the castle and he says, "Who wants to play this game with me?" And then someone steps forward and says, "Well, you never brought Gawain back, so
we're not really interested.
Here's a little scratch on the nose. I'll see you next Christmas." Like,
yeah, you're right. I don't know how to feel about this movie. Should we get into star rating, Sam?
Yeah, we probably should. I'm done talking about this movie.
So 5 stars for Sam. All right.
5 stars.
No. What are you giving this movie?
I gave it 2 out of 5. I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't.
Killer, man.
I didn't have a good time. There's some commendable things to it, as we discussed, but it's just not. I don't think it's a good movie. I just don't.
So, well, gosh, where do I said at the beginning I had no idea where I fall. I still really don't. There are times in the movie where I really was like, man, I really love this. The ending being one, and that initial Green Knight scene, and there's a couple other things throughout where I was like, man, I really love this. And then other moments where you could have let me fall asleep and then woke me up when something was happening, and I'd have been just fine with that.
Exactly.
My gosh. I am between 2 ratings, Sam. Either a 2-star
Okay.
or a 4-star. So I don't know, man. Like some parts of this thing are so terrible that it's excruciating, and then other parts I really love. I really don't know. I'm gonna go both a 2-star and a 4-star. I'm breaking grounds here.
Okay.
I don't know what that means for like end of year list, like where I'm gonna rank this. I will need another week to sit on this. I haven't had enough time. This was the same thing with A Ghost Story. I thought about A Ghost Story for like a week straight after viewing that. I probably won't be a week for this because I won't care as much. But right. I need slightly more time. I'll get back to you. I promise.
Well, hey, let me ask you this, Will.
Yeah.
Maybe you need a rewatch to really gather your thoughts. Oh, you don't want to watch it again? Oh, interesting.
I know what you're saying, man. I know what you're saying. This is a movie where I'm gonna like. I feel like I'm gonna like thinking about it, but one that I'll never want to watch again, if that makes sense.
I really think this has no rewatchability.
I would agree with you there. I don't think I'll ever rewatch this, but I think I'll like thinking about it, and I think I'll tell people, "Hey, watch this," on the odd chance that they feel the same way about it that I do, and then we can think about it together. That's my dream.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know, man.
All right.
Maybe enough. While I was talking, I was closer to a 4. Now I'm closer to a 2. I don't know. So there you go. That's about the weirdest rating I could have given, and I'm sure many people are upset with me. But man, the Green Knight, we've done it. Sam, should we get into some recommendations?
Yeah, let's get into some recommendations, man.
I'm really excited about mine.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend an additional podcast.
Oh boy.
The final of my 3. And then I'm never recommending podcasts again because you should only listen to this one. No, I'm kidding. This one is a true story, Sam. It's I'm not like really into true crime podcasts, Sam, because they're just kind of like, yeah, I mean, both of us kind of push back on popular things at some points in our lives.
Yeah, well, when you're already living a life of crime, it's just true crime is just
true crime is just uninteresting, right? This podcast series called Exit Scam is not really true crime. It's more of a mystery. It's not crime at all because have been no criminal charges. It is 100% a mystery. It's called Exit Scam. This podcast came out this spring/summer. I believe there's 8 episodes. Yeah, 8 episodes, all about 30 minutes. And essentially, a couple of years ago, this event occurred where the largest Canadian Bitcoin exchange, its owner and sole employee at the company, died. He died mysteriously. And all $215 million that were invested into this company was inaccessible to its investors. And essentially that $215 million is still sitting, and its investors will never be able to get it. Because he never had he never shared any of the passwords with anyone in his life. So there's no way to remove it. So essentially, this investigation started up of, did this guy actually die? Or did he fake his death and take the $215 million?
Ooh.
So this is a super high recommendation. Exit Scam. Sam, I believe you'll really love it.
Yeah, I will definitely have to check that out. That's probably the only way in human history that you could ever ensure that your money is never sees the hands of anyone else.
Yeah.
Well, even if you bury your gold, someone's gonna find it eventually.
Yeah, you're right. And this, from the way this podcast made it out to be, this money it will never be accessed ever again, which is unfortunate. But check it out, Exit Scam, and there's some twists and turns along the way too. So
excellent.
Yeah,
just
really,
like the Green Knight,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're a great tandem piece. Watch the Green Knight, then listen to Exit Scam. It's man.
The Green Knight, like finances, like money.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Huh. So check that out, Exit Scam, on all.
I will have to check that out. That sounds phenomenal. So earlier this week, I watched a classic, largely considered a classic, a John Huston movie called The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. This is deservedly called a classic. It's kind of a precursor to Indiana Jones, although it's much more of a character study, basically focused on these 3 characters. And it's phenomenal. It's so ahead of its time. Humphrey Bogart is the lead, but Humphrey Bogart doesn't play a very Humphrey Bogart-esque character. His character actually kind of slowly goes insane. Very neurotic, borderline psychopathic. So it's very interesting to see Bogart give a performance like this, and it's interesting to see any actor give a performance like this back in the 1940s. So definitely check it out. It's very, very entertaining and thought-provoking. So check out The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And that's been on my list for a long time. I'm excited that I got your endorsement. I will see that soon. I'm excited for that.
You'll like it.
Good. Man, Sam, until next time, where can I find you on the Letterboxd?
If you're looking, you can find me on the letterboxd.com/sjdierberger. Where can I find you, Will Spalding?
You can find me there at Will Spalding, and you can find us in the round table, where we don't face the Green Knights though. Sam's is the infamous Yellow Knight, and I have a Blue Knight, so it's a lot better than Green Knight. Or you can find us at anchor.fm/thosefilmnerds or thosefilmnerds.weebly.com, or anywhere podcasts are found at Those Film Nerds, and on YouTube and on Gmails and Instagrams and everywhere like that. But until next time, Sam, until next week.
Keep watching movies, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Ever thought about making a podcast? Well, Anchor is the easiest and simplest way to do so. Let me explain. For starters, it's free. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone, laptop, or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on multiple platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and much, much more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need in a podcast in one place, so give it a try.